Hey guys, Adam here. Before this video begins, I just want to let you know that the book we wrote actually comes with a bunch of interactive QR codes at the end of each chapter. This is the first of 20 some that you can find if and when you buy the book. You can find these podcast logs however you want and listen to them in any order. Fair warning, without reading the book, they probably won't make a lot of sense, but hopefully they're still entertaining. I'll give you another reminder at the end of the video. So with that, enjoy. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning at 2 p.m. to you, Adam.
We wrote a book. Spent a lot of time working on this thing, and I wanted to prove we wrote it, so we should talk to each other about it.
Sounds like a suicide note.
I had this idea because we worked on this thing remotely for... How much time did we spend on this? I lost track of all of it.
When did you first drunkenly tell me about this at a chicken place?
We were in Austin 2.5 years ago, and I said, meet me for chicken. And then I met at the wrong chicken place, and then I found the right chicken place, and then we drank 7 or 8 beers.
Yeah.
And I explained this idea to you. I keep trying to write this thing, and I can't do it because I'm stuck. And I know you're a good writer. Tell me if this is a bad idea or not.
Yeah.
And I remember you going to the bathroom without saying anything.
Wait, really?
You sat there, you thought about it, I'll be right back. You went in the bathroom and you sat there going, he fucking hates this. He hates this idea.
I remember, from what I remember, you say, hey, this is probably why I don't remember because I drank. But you said, hey, I have this idea and it's about this kind of soldier. War is fought all in this one place on Earth. It's all centralized here. And he has, he's like a man trapped in this robot android bipedal thing.
Yeah.
And he's taking contracts and trying to earn credits to do something.
I was the eager production assistant of like, I've got a dream, but it's really missing a lot of things. I have a name, and there's something about chess pieces. And I've done a little bit of world building, which is like the worst kind of writing anyone could ever do, where you go, I've created the economy of this place, but I don't know what any of the characters look like.
And then you're saying, you told me this, and then I just went to the bathroom and didn't say anything?
I remember you like thought about it. I guess to fill in the blanks there too, I had tried writing this thing by myself. Yeah. I had an outline. I locked myself in a room. I kind of piece it together. I came up with a few of the characters' names, kind of the setting, but then like at one point I started like drawing a map in Photoshop, and I'm like, this will help me write better.
I'm trying to remember if I saw that map. I definitely saw the outline.
Yeah.
The outline looked like what I imagine Ted Kaczynski was sending to people, like institutions before he would bomb them.
There was some picture from a Pearl Jam music video.
Yes.
A lot of bullet points. And then it said book. Yeah. And so I had tried writing a prologue 3 or 4 times where it was introducing this character who at the time his name was just Lasker. And he was trying to do an arms deal. The idea was he was like trying to get a new arm because he's a robot and needs a new arm.
That's right.
And I kept trying to write it over and over, and it just wasn't working. And I was getting really frustrated and hitting my head against the wall. So then I called you and said, I have this idea. I want to work on it, but I just don't think I can do it alone. I'm really struggling with any kind of story. So then after you came back from the bathroom, I think you were just kind of like,
after I had made my tweet about you should hear this idiot's thing.
Don't you hate it when your friends just want you to do all the work?
And I'm going to pay for the meal.
I'm like, Aaron's burning someone up in there.
Yeah.
What a loser.
What an asshole. So I come out.
You came out, and then I think we parted ways.
Yes, we did.
You got in your Uber, drove away. I got in my Uber, drove away. And I remember just thinking, well, that's the end of that. Like, we're not going to really talk about that much. Or I think it was one of those things where I said, and we'll keep talking about the book, right? And you're like, yeah.
I'm already on Tinder looking for a new writer.
I don't know how long it was. Maybe a month or 2 later, I came back into town, and you're like, let's meet up. And that's when you pulled your laptop out, and you're like, okay, let's hit the notes. These are the things that don't work. These are the things we need. And then we started just spitballing a bunch of ideas then and there. And that's like when work officially began.
I remember telling you that I needed a couple weeks to just go think. I think
about our friendship.
Yes, about our friendship. And then I was like, while I'm thinking about whether we should be friends anymore, this project, there were a few things that I loved about it. So originally, you were saying all wars fought in one place. And I was thinking, why would they do that? Why, what would be the incentive for that?
There was a lot of just those missing pieces. I remember you came up with the name Null, and then you said gig economy at that same meeting. You said, these are my thoughts. Because then I remember I came in and said, I want to do something in there where the narrative switches. I remember American Psycho did that, and I loved it. I wonder if there's a way we can do that. And you were like, hold on. But then, but then we came up with the idea, I think in that meeting, saying like, well, what if these are logs? What if you're reading someone's story? So then if something interesting happens in the story and something shorts out, we can do some like intermission. Here's something you could do. So then that got us really excited. And we came up with one of the stories that ended up just getting, it was the first Wikipedia story that ended up getting completely cut out.
Yeah, the Voyager story.
Yeah, because we had this other concept. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Either way.
Like, we're enticing, I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah. Would be auctioneers. But I remember we came up with a lot of good stuff, and I came away from that meeting drunk and jazzed. Like,
yeah. I was really drunk.
Yeah. And I remember the donuts you did on your motorcycle. You looked really excited.
Just took off in a wheelie down the street.
I remember you falling over a little bit and then going, taxi?
Yeah. I just abandoned that motorcycle that day.
I think, you threw $10 onto the fuel tank and just said, please don't take. And then
I'm a writer. And then I ran off.
I've started book tonight.
Yeah.
And then I think from there we started our weekly meetings.
We started our weekly meetings.
Every Sunday we'd call and just talk ideas.
Yeah. And in the beginning, it was figuring out, it was everything from the ground up. It was tone. It was all this stuff. I remember feeling when I first read that kind of thing, your Kaczynski manifesto that you'd put together. You'd had kind of a blurb half page for a from start to end, maybe 20 of those or 15 of those chapter wise. And I remember reading those and being like, they're very, very serious, very, I don't know. It was something that you or I wouldn't normally do, especially you knowing you and knowing what you did. I was like, I understand the need to be like serious sci-fi, or serious future dystopia thing. Right. I was like, I think there's a different way to potentially do this. And then we were figuring that out, like tonally, like what, and we started talking about things like George Carlin and all sorts of just, inspirations it was all these pieces.
Yeah.
That we're trying to put together.
I guess in a weird opposite way, you kept pulling me back into comedy reality, which is stick to what you're good at. Don't write sci-fi that's going to be masturbatory. It's like, I remember you saying, this is a cool idea. Don't focus on that. Don't get in the muck of the way servos work or the way technology, like the most important thing you said was show, don't tell. And
I think I remember there was this one piece of the original thing you wrote, like it was like a paragraph on, like a BIOS update or something. And I was like, I remember reading it and going cross-eyed and going, I can't do this with that. I can't and then, but once I kind of, we talked about that and said, why don't we have fun? And the dark, like comedic truth that we get at will be, it'll actually say something as opposed to, there's plenty of stories out there that are just going to be, masturbatory action, whatever that we're talking about. But let's make something fun and using these elements.
I know there were a couple story beats that I put in there that I would just like write my nightmares and dreams down.
I remember.
And I'm like, if we could keep this in somehow, because it was a cool dream and it left me feeling a certain way. And I'm glad some of those things stayed in, but other stuff, I think at the end of the day, like, man, I'm still remembering we met up in person a year ago and so much came together then. Like the story was kind of doing this weird snake thing. And then we got together, wrote all the ideas up on a wall, and then it just it really started to gel. And like the last year has been refining that and just how far it's I don't know. I've never written a book before, so maybe that's how it's done. I don't know.
Well, this is my 10th book, and as a no, I mean, I hadn't written a book either. I feel like there's things that I've done, and you too, things that we've done the last 15 years of our career that prepared us to write this young adult to 11 to 12-year-old novel.
If you're tired of J.K. Rowling's transphobic views,
her prose a little too complicated, settle for,
having trouble reading to your kids about magic and other bullshit, it's time for robots. It didn't fit on the cover of the book. But I get that. I get what you're saying. There were so many times where I would stop and go, what the fuck am I doing? It usually came from like a snide text from you being like, you sent a screenshot of something I wrote that was barely English because I just mashed the keyboard. And then I'd go, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point? Why? But then you'd come back and go, look, I remember you're such a, whether you know it or not.
Probably don't, but go ahead.
You have the abusive parent in you that I always wish I had, which was, oh, you're so bad. And then you go, hey, that was really good.
I should thank my dad when we're done with this.
There were times I get down on myself because I'd be like, yeah, I'm busy with work. I'm busy with this and that. And my head's in 1,000 different places. And then it's like, now go write a book. And my head's not there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not putting in my best effort. But then I remember I wrote the intro, or I gave you like a pass of the intro of like, welcome to the book, welcome to the whole thing. And you said something along the lines of, that's inspirational. That's good stuff. Like, keep doing that. And I was like, okay, maybe my second grade teacher wasn't wrong. And that I did deserve to go to that book fair because she thought I'd be a good writer. Or
she's like, you deserve more than an eraser from this book fair. Go ahead.
She thought I was the other Adam. Yeah. The one who got A's.
Yeah.
Not dumb old dummy AK.
Dumb old can't spell Adam.
He can't remember definitions.
It's there's moments where you get that spark while we were doing this. It's hard to write between two people over the course of 2.5 years. But I feel like this all came together into we were on the same page, like as far as a universe and as far as what we wanted to say. And as we talk and go through this book, these things that we thought so long about, soberly and sometimes not soberly, it was the foundation that we built everything on. So there was, we'd get to the end of this book and we're like, wow, how did this line up? Because it was so ingrained. So it was the things that we wanted to tell, the themes that we had talked about, the absurdities that we wanted to hit, they all carried through. And, despite our, sometimes uneven ability, to get it out, we eventually smoothed the concrete.
You said something, it's funny there is that like we were on the same page. Sometimes literally you would, early on when we started writing this thing, it was, all right, chapter 1, I'll take the first half, you take the second half. And there was almost sometimes a tonal shift.
There was that first time.
Yeah. And then eventually we started just going like, okay, we're just doing odds and evens. Like, you write a chapter, I write a chapter, I write a chapter, you go over it. You write a chapter, I go over it. And like, we just kept going. I mean, Google wrote most of it for me. And,
I can tell.
Yeah.
When you told me that you were writing this fucking thing on an iPad or whatever, I was like, that explains so much. You abandoned that eventually, but like, you were writing on an iPad. And I was like, what is it? It was just, it would be a random sentence in the middle of a word because it had copied and pasted into a middle of a fucking word. And I was like, I'd write up my abusive text to send you, and then I'd hold off and be like, well, let me see why this happened. And then I'm surprised we didn't kill each other. Eventually.
No, I think at the end of the day, we did this for fun and for a good cause. Like, we want to kind of make up for some other stuff, which we can talk about later. But I think at the end of the day, I remember when we sat down, the original idea was, this is not something that's going to make us rich.
No one gets into a book to go like, now this is my house that I'm going to get here.
Yeah. And I think that took a lot of the pressure off because I'm like, this is something I just want to do this. Once we were on that path, I'm like, I can at least just say I wrote some of a book because Google did most of it.
You signed terms and conditions that says Google owns the book because we use Google Drive. So
the irony, so much of that has to do with the book?
So many years we had to make things that, for me, I had to write things that, whether they were scripts or shows or whatever the thing was, they had to appease, certain people. They had to be sellable. There was all these things they had to hit. And, at the end of the day too, it wasn't a fully written work. I mean, it's a script is not a movie. It's a script, and people don't sit down. Normally people don't sit down to read a script. Yeah. So you're dependent on it being made too. So there was, for the longest time, I was doing stuff that it wasn't being made, and it had so much pressure to be certain things. And I know, for you had to constantly make things that, had certain laugh per second, kind of thing. And
it was nice being able to work on something where you could breathe, where there's a setup, a punchline, setup, a punchline, or sometimes just setup, 200 pages later, punchline. And not really even thinking with that mindset, just that freedom of, I don't need to keep someone's attention because there's something shiny over here. Right. It's like, okay, a book is, I enjoy reading, and I haven't read anything in a really long,
it shows.
Yeah, I've written more books than I've read.
Well, there was also, I remember a couple times you would say, I think you would start drifting into being worried about how many, words something was, or something like that. And kind of like really, there is a time and a place for, well, this shouldn't be a 300,000 word book. There's certainly that sort of thing. But if you're living in a scene, we had no pressure to cut anything down. We had no, if something was working, or we were feeling something, or, it was a great character moment, let's just do it. Let's write something for us, as opposed to, whoever. I mean,
it was helpful. There are complete chapters that went missing because we made one change a year ago and said, hey, if we change one story element, we get here a lot faster and we spend less time kind of dragging our heels. And they're like, oh, but that entire chapter's gone. And I go, okay. Yeah. I think that my years editing video helped me with that, where it's like,
same.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? Yeah, you spent a long time on it. Doesn't mean it's gone forever. It's going to live somewhere in an NFT or on someone's hard drive that they'll find after all of humanity collapses. And they go, what is this garbage?
In some school, this is the unabridged version of Rook. And the kid's like, this is shit. And you're like, well, that's why they cut it originally 100 years ago.
I don't choose the books. Yeah. Our dictator does.
Yeah, our Lord.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. Kim Jong-un Bush.
Yeah. It would be great if North Korea loves this book.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ideas in here. Like, what does that mean?
It'd definitely be a dream of either Russia or North Korea, or, to be more timely, if the Taliban said, this is the only book you can teach in school.
This is our Harry Potter.
This is the one we will allow. I think that'd be fine. The book is a time capsule, like a snapshot of where we were over 3 years. We wrote it during a pandemic. Judging on the names that are used, of women and different people, you can tell who I was dating at the time, when we broke up,
when you and I broke up.
When, you and I were fighting. There, you can see all these elements and how long it took to go from drunkenly, talking about it over chicken, to ended up in Long Beach a first time a year ago, and for the second time,
you drove out to you.
I had to drive
because
out.
There's no way to fly. Yeah,
I couldn't fly here because of.
We quarantined ourselves in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
You had just started a new job, and we're working away.
I've wasted 3.5 years of my life.
No, 2.5.
It's 2019.
We didn't write a math book.
Yeah.
We wrote a novel, which some say is as long as The Lord of the Rings, which I don't think is a good thing. Those books are too long.
Some would say this book is 122,409 words.
There's no way to verify that.
There isn't.
It's changing by the day. It's changing as we speak.
There's an editor, a wonderful editor named Rebecca, who is painfully finishing up editing this book. Though she laughed many times, we never saw the tears.
Never out of spite, though. Like, I guess that's another thing I learned in all of this, which somehow you knew all of these things, or you were just making up the fact that you did that.
I was.
Because I remember you saying early on, like, we need to get an editor for this. I'm like, absolutely. I just want different eyeballs on this thing. But we have been working with a professional editor, which, I'll be honest, it's not too hard to be an author.
That's a good place to end. Looking back on it, it's pretty easy.
What you do is you write just good enough. Aaron fixes it, and then another person fixes it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
No.
I felt like I was really annoying you for a while talking about getting an editor. Because
no, I was never. I was always gung ho. Like, yeah, let's.
No, I know you were gung ho, but I also felt, I was like, man, I know because I repeat things a lot. As I repeat
because my
myself.
brain's no good. You got to say
my brain's no good.
You got to make it stick to the soft tissue.
But I knew once we were finished with this thing, and an editor saw it, and I especially like just the nature of this book and the topics it tackles. Like, it's a loner dude who's sad, an incel type,
which was never the intention.
It was never but it was, just naturally came out.
Right.
But because of the nature of the things we were tackling and the way like women are portrayed in it sometimes and all this stuff, I was like, we have to have a really sharp female editor who's going to bust us over the head and tell us like it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like we found that.
She always would give us high marks for when something worked, and then she would
absolutely bury us.
And be like, this doesn't make any sense, or hey, if you're going to do this joke, it needs to be backed up with this, and it
needs to be funny,
and it needs to be actually funny. Yeah. So I'm a weird Gen X millennial type or whatever. Not that defines me or makes me have to do anything, but there's that pessimistic side of me of like, it's all useless. Who cares? It's all going to suck. So typically when it comes to anything, I don't really have an opinion. My opinion is it's all sucks and it's all going to be bad anyway. That doesn't really work well for a book. Tell me.
People will be the judge. We've read it enough, but
yeah.
What I think is interesting is when we started writing this, it was obviously before the world ended, and it was people who hadn't had connection in so long that the idea of actual true connection was sexy. And that's not just in a sexual sense, but just like it's electrifying, and little did we know that things would change in such a way that connections it's really hard to have now.
In the time we started this, OnlyFans started porn, got rid of porn, and brought it back. And it might be different by the time the book's out. I don't know. I don't know the future of OnlyFans.
and OnlyFans is a great way to show the way at least we thought the evolution of relationships and connection will be for probably a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with Twitch and YouTube. It's platform agnostic, but those are symptoms of the larger. I don't know if you could even call it a problem because
it just might be the evolution of connection.
Yeah, there's this book. It's like Dopamine Nation, and they talk about that where. Like, why have we not evolved to figure this out yet? It's like, well, we still got monkey brains. We're still trying to figure this stuff out. But yeah, maybe we will evolve where we can handle excess all the time because the way our brains are supposed to work is we work around scarcity. But for some people, scarcity is not a thing. For others, that's all they know. And we are still this weird glob of humanity. There's no, like I said, there's no black and white. There's no one shoe fits all. But in our world, from what we've seen, those relationships are becoming more common of, my girlfriend lives on the other side of a screen, but it's because at the end of the day, humans are tribal and they want connection and they want to find someone that they can connect with. And right now you're having a lot of people who have been raised on nothing but the internet and that's all they know. So that's normal for some people. For other people, like for me, it's a little weird. It's a little new, but I'm here to learn.
Here to learn, here to teach.
I have nothing to teach.
And neither do I.
I don't know where I'm going with this side tangent.
I think you're trying to convince people not to read the book, I think is what you're
I'm
saying.
trying to convince people that I'm smarter than I am.
Oh, okay.
By saying big words like paradoxical. Fuck me. Paradoxical. Is that a dinosaur?
I could just imagine you spelling that and then me looking at it and going, I don't know what this... I think he's trying to say parabellum, but I'm not quite sure.
That's a porn star, I think.
That's a good place to get us into this world that we have built and cobbled together, and this story that kind of starts in a familiar place, at least to now.
Yeah.
But it's the evolution of where we are now, 70 years from now.
Well, that was I guess one of the last things I'll talk about. I remember when I originally pitched the idea to you, it took place in the year 2500 or something.
That's right.
And then you said, make it 2090, make it closer to home. And like originally the main character was like 50 years old, because to me in that time, 50 will be the new 30. And we're just continually being like these like man children. Or that's the other thing too. We're writing from the perspective of man. So that's all we know.
We are man.
Man, mostly.
Yeah. You know,
according to our fathers, maybe not.
Yeah.
It could have been more. Everyone we showed it to, they're like, I'm confused. Why is he 50? And I was like,
I thought he was in his 30s.
Yeah. It's like, well, and then when you explain it, that switch goes and you go, that makes sense. It's like, you shouldn't have to explain anything. And
we should have some CD-ROM that comes with the book where it fills in the blanks for, it's like it's like a recall CD,
like a low res, like FMV. It plays like Myst.
Yeah.
Or like, you're probably wondering. Yeah. It's just,
I feel like we've lost sight of what we were originally talking about.
I agree. Oh, I thought you were with the book.
Oh, yeah. What I was going to say is, I don't remember.
As far as I can tell, that's the story of how this labor of love came to be. And we have a lot more of these that I want to talk about. Mostly is like, this is my own therapy in a way that I
think this is going to get real.
I think I don't want to pay for it anymore. And if I just talk to you, it's better than someone through a webcam.
See, I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to get into therapy. Not that I think I think therapy is fantastic.
Sure.
Me personally, I don't want to shell out the dough. And it's cheaper to sit here with you and talk about my inner demons over the course of an entire book.
It's hard to find someone to trust with that, and even harder to find insurance that thinks mental health is a real thing.
Yeah.
That's always something like, why don't you just stop doing it? Have you thought about just being happy? And then eventually someone goes, here's some pills.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this country so much, and the healthcare system. I love this book. I loved working on it with you, and I'm looking forward to talking about it more. And I'm,
Dog agrees. I'll cheers to that.
I'll cheers. So more to come. I look forward to talking about Log 1. I'm out. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Ooh.
Should we cut?
Cut.